Well, Worthy is a cheat code. We're obviously extremely proud of him over here on our show, 421. As impressive as that was, AD Mitchell at 6'2", 205, running a 4.34 official.
It's more impressive.
Yes, thank you. I think so. I wanted to get, before we talk about anything about our guys and where they might fall, I want to get your insight on your two guys, because your two guys going into this, and probably still right now, are ahead of these guys in mock drafts and draft rankings. Malik Neighbors being the number 2 receiver, and then Brian Thomas Jr. being, I think, the number 4 receiver ranked right now. To maybe tell us a bit of something that people don't necessarily know about both those guys, in particular, Brian Thomas Jr. is not getting as much love as Malik Neighbors.
Who we didn't, our guys ran, the 4.21 and the 4.35. Brian Thomas was sandwiched in between them at a 4.33. So he really impressed at the combine. Go ahead.
And before you go, Blake, Brian Thomas, his 10-yard split, I think, which for those of you who don't know, is they measure the first 10 yards of the 40-yard dash. Brian Thomas's 10-yard split, I think, was 3rd. I mean, he tested as impressively as our guys did. So credit where credit's due.
I think, Josh, it has more to do with what happened on the field than what happened in tights. See, I am of the belief, I don't mind you testing guys at the combine, like, hey, let them run, let them catch, let them do a vert, get the medicals. The game is played in pads, okay? And so when it comes down to it, Brian Thomas Jr., for as an example, okay, I'll give the Alabama game as a big example. Xavier Worthy's not going 30 yards downfield and taking Dallas Turner and turning him into Swiss cheese. That's exactly what we saw from a blocking aspect. I think in the NFL – What's something that people miss a lot, okay, is you run the ball much more, okay, than you do in the college game. It's much like if he went to Green Bay. You think Brian Thomas Jr. has to block? Yes, that's a big part of his game. Other places, like maybe he can get away with stuff at Kansas City, that's a whole different ball game and a different story. But you have to look at what he does without the ball in his hands versus what he does even leading the country in touchdown passes. I think for me with Brian Thomas Jr., you always knew that he had that ability. He just didn't have the chances to do that until Jaden and this offense started to move and get with it. Year 2 under Brian Kelly. So I think that's where he took the next step. Against Alabama, he was double covered the entire game. They let Malik Neighbors go wild. He was the X factor that Saban thought we cannot let behind us. So I think that speaks volumes to how he is. But I'll tell you this. When LSU 2 years ago won the game against Alabama and won the SEC West, Jaden Daniels might have ran for 25 yards in the touchdown. Brian Thomas putting Eli Ricks on skates like he was in the mid-'80s on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle scene with Vanilla Ice. Okay, go Ninjas, go Ninjas, go. That was what solidifies to me why I think we saw AD Mitchell struggle blocking a little bit against Washington at times. I think that's the only thing that you separate those two. Okay, I think one's a little bit more willing. With Malik, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, look, I think he's the best receiver in this draft.
Really?
Yes, because I've seen Marvin Harrison getting taken out of games and they still win. You take Malik Neighbors out of a game for LSU the last few years, they're not winning. Ask Florida State what happens. So I come to a point where Marvin Harrison Jr. did not have to be the dude for them to win. Malik had to have 10-plus catches in a game versus Alabama for them to be remotely close. Here's another thing. How many times did Malik Neighbors go against first-round corners and body them? That would be the question that I would ask. Josh, we look at this and Alex, we look at this from a perspective, oh, look what they did at the combine. And nobody turns on the film. That's why last night, this whole thing with Jaden Daniels, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that's why I tweeted it after the combine was over. Just a reminder, this is who he is. So I think a lot of times in March, we forget who people are and what they did on the field. Don't forget about the film and what they've done. But Xavier Worthy, look, the 4 of them, though, maybe besides Malik Neighbors, the other 3, select one. If you have a higher grade on Worthy, you have a high, maybe not Worthy, but if you have a higher grade on Mitchell or Brian Thomas, take one. I mean, I am there with them because of how they've played. Now, let's see where they fall.
Yeah, I think on the Mitchell point to me, I mean, we say this on our show all the time. He won two at Georgia, comes to us, we go to the college football playoff. I don't think it's that much of a coincidence. The guy brings a winning culture with him, and where he tests his ability to run routes, and as fun and exciting as Worthy is, AD Mitchell was our number one receiver and was our best
without
receiver.
question.
He's our most talented receiver. And I think Worthy, Worthy's an all-conference player in two positions. I was telling everyone this weekend who was we were texting about it with, everyone's really amped about it. I'm like, look, not only is he a fast guy, he's a really skilled returner, and he's a skilled wide receiver. He can run routes, and as a freshman, he had 12 touchdowns. So he's a really talented wide receiver as well. He's an all-conference player. He is worthy, no pun intended, of a first-round pick. But you turn on the film for Brian Thomas Jr., and I think at times he gets shadowed by a Malik Neighbors who has the hype. And whether you think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best receiver or Malik Neighbors has gotten a little bit of buzz, not a lot of buzz, but a little bit of buzz as the top guy. Brian Thomas Jr., I think, is an unsung hero, and I'm glad you bring up the blocking because Green Bay is a really good fit for him. I think they could definitely use him. I don't think he falls that far. He's probably not.
I don't think Green Bay selects a wide receiver with the first pick. I mean, they're not going to do that. To your point, I will say this. The only thing that would scare me about Worthy.
Size?
Got to be. Yeah, I mean, look, man, with all due respect to him, and I know that he said he played at 165 pounds all year, you cannot do that in the NFL. You guys, he cannot do that. All right, now, I hate to say it like that, he's got to put on 15 pounds. He has to put on – I don't care what you're going to do. Run a 4.23 instead of a 4.21.
That's fine.
What are we discussing? Okay, what are we nobody's going to catch up to him anyway, regardless. But I do think that there's something to be said about a guy that can take a pounding in the NFL, okay, versus someone who can. What's the difference? AD Mitchell, Brian Thomas, they're well over 200. Malik Neighbors is going to be 202, 203. So, again, you're talking about almost 40 pounds, okay, on three dudes, if not more, okay? And I think John Ross hurts Xavier Worthy to some extent because John Ross had such a bad experience. And then who was it Chris Archer, maybe from Kent State?
Drew Archer,
okay. It went to the Steelers, I think. Yes. He ran like a 4.23, something like that. Complete bust. I mean, and look, we're talking about dudes running in tights. Now, I think that he's different, okay, because like you said, of his route running and things that he does with the ball in his hands. You can't be 100. Name one dude that's 165 pounds in this league that can come in here and do anything.
No, it's a size thing. I think John Ross got hurt too.
Thank you for making the point.
Yeah, no, right. I'm with you. Trey Archer's a different story. I think he's just a speedster. He's from a Kent State, a fourth round pick from the Steelers. But John Ross is, taking I think one spot ahead of Pat Mahomes, right? And I'm sure the Bengals probably could have used Mr. Mahomes when they took John Ross. So
the Bengals could have used anybody. I mean, before Burrow got there, they sucked.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think it's a size thing for Worthy is something that scared me. Tia, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, we always talk about defensive line, right? When guys are transitioning from college to pro, are they a 3-down lineman? I don't think we bring up enough. Are you a 3-down? Are you a 4-down wide receiver, right? And by that, I mean, can you make all the different types of catches on the football field for every down, for every situation? And right now at 165, I don't think that's what Xavier Worthy is, right?
You know what would be the best fit for him? He falls to the second round and goes to Denver because Sean Payton has found ways with dudes like this to be highly successful. Ask Reggie. I mean, ask dudes. If he fell to Denver or somehow got to Denver, I think that he would be explosive. I think that he'd be fine there because Sean has shown an ability – with gimmick guys that look, he can make a gimmick guy a all-pro, a Pro Bowl dude. So if I am Xavier Worthy's camp, I am asking Denver, hey man, we'll sit at come on. I mean, we'll go to Denver, and I know that he might not have a quarterback, but that's not going to be